here's a little bit of a tweak. Like, we can do it, but so trying to convince ourselves that it's not hard is not helpful. That's kind of like pushing the feelings down.
Oh.
Right? It's not just shifting to, oh, I'm thinking negative, so I'm going to think positive and that's going to fix it all. No. It is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. That's how we validate. If we can't even validate ourselves, how can we validate our children's feelings?
Welcome to the SALT Podcast, where we talk about all things simple. Yep, simple anointed living tips. I'm your host, Jenny Peña. Welcome, friends. Thank you so much for joining us in today's podcast episode with someone I'm so incredibly honored to have recording with me right now. I don't even think she knows like how important this is for me to like get back in touch with her. So Barbie and I met years ago. My first baby was she was 10 months old, I think. And Barbie had put an announcement that she needed a after school care teacher. And from that point on, my whole parenting and outlook on children and their growth and everything completely was changed. And she mentored me and she threw books at me that I never even would have picked up on my own. And I'm so, so grateful for you, Barbie. Thank you so much for being on here with us today.
Hi, Jenny. It's my pleasure. It's so lovely to hear that. I really didn't know that. And I'm very excited to reconnect with you. And I also have been following your adventures. So it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Yes, I've been following you, and a lot has happened actually since we last spoke. But for those of you who don't know about you and don't really know where you're coming from and who you are, can you give us just a little bit of background?
Sure. So, like you said, my name is Barbie Jimenez, and I'm a former early childhood educator. Been working with parents and children for over 25 years. And I've been in the public school system, the charter school system, the private school system. Even on, like when we met I was running my own family home-based daycare for children. And then after years of doing that, I decided, because of my own parenting challenges and my own parenting journey, I discovered Dr. Shafali Sabari's work and took every course, read every book, and ended up becoming one of her coaches, or a certified coach by her. And that's what I'm doing now, and really just trying to support parents on their journey of parenting more consciously and shifting from our controlling, authoritarian behavior modification, rewards and punishment background, which is not only traditional parenting, but traditional education, which was where I came from too. So I tried to parent like I used to educate in the traditional way. And it worked, with my daughter, because she allowed me to control her, unfortunately. And with my son, my daughter's 18 now, and my son is 15 now. Mm-hmm.
What? How?
Yes, I know. So when my son was around 7, 8-ish, he just looked at me straight in the eye and said, "You're trying to control me. Stop." I was like, okay, now what? Luckily, I was able, by some miracle, to hear him and not continue to fight, right? And I was able to say, okay, I'm the adult here. I need to figure this out if I want to have a relationship with my son and with my kids. And that's how I discovered Dr. Shafali's work. Somebody recommended her to me. I watched her on Super Soul Sunday and I was hooked. It was like every cell in my body was vibrating. and just resonating. Um, and so I read all her books, took all her courses, like I said, and became a coach. And now I help parents to embark on this journey too, because society and culture has conditioned us to believe that because we are physically able to have children, that we
Mm-hmm.
will intuitively know what to do. And
Oof.
that is just bull. Like, it's not true. And then you layer that with the guilt we feel when we don't know what to do.
Ugh.
And especially this past year with, the lockdowns and all that, with the way that we decide that no one else is going through what we're going through. And so
Mm.
we close off even more. So it's really hard to get that support because no one's having those difficult conversations. No one's talking about how much they may not really like their kid in a particular moment, right? Oh, everybody's
Yeah.
only talking about, oh, our children are so loving and our children are so perfect. And yeah, that's true. But we're
Yeah.
still human. And there's points where we lose it and where we're like, we don't like these kids. And I don't know what else to do with them. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, and no one wants to talk about those things, especially if you go on social media and everything is so beautiful and perfect and nobody is struggling. You go to the park and everybody looks like everything's hunky dory, and you feel
Mm-hmm.
more and more like there's something wrong with you, and you feel
Yeah, I
guilty that you're
definitely
yelling.
relate.
And
I
I've been
definitely
there.
relate. I had to have you on because um, I think there's a few resources that I still go to because of your recommendation. Telling me like, well, what are they really saying when they're doing this, or what can we do, or how can we react? And it's true. Ugh, like I have three now. When I met you, I only had one, so it was a lot
Yeah.
easier to implement those things, I feel like, especially with the community and especially with the help of other moms in my area. And now, like you said, with the lockdowns and with isolation and with spending more time with your children, I feel like we are in need of introspection on ourselves and realizing with the help that we need as moms too. I love that you're touching on that. Before we get into the tips that you're going to give us, though, I want to know a little bit about, I don't know, like your upbringing, maybe cultural if influences and how that played out in your parenting, and things that maybe we see today that are things that we have picked up from our own upbringing or our current culture. What do you think?
Well, I was definitely raised in a home that was authoritarian. Um, my mom was the disciplinarian, and she was a yeller. I became a yeller. um,
Yeah.
she used to spank us. Um, Luckily, I did spank my kids in the early years, on the booty, on their hand, if they touched something they weren't supposed to touch. I mean, not to the point that I ever left a bruise or anything like that, but yeah, I did that because that was my conditioning. That was the way I
Mm-hmm.
was brought up. And I had
Yeah,
to
me too.
eventually shift that and learn that that was just me projecting my anger and
Mm,
not growing up and learning how to reflect even at the fact that I was angry and this had nothing to do with the other person. It was all within me.
mm,
But we're not taught that, right?
mhm.
We're taught that to project and to blame and to look on the outside. And so yeah, this is what happens. We are raised in a certain way, and also with my, I come from a Hispanic culture, and at least in my home, my mother didn't allow anyone else to discipline us. It was just her.
Mhm.
And then she turned into, the mama bear if anyone
Mm,
else tried to do anything. or even try to stop her from disciplining us in a certain way. Um, and so, yeah, those were all things that I had to sit with, and and not from a place of blaming, because I know
Hmm.
she was doing the best she could. She had evolved from the way she was raised.
Right.
I hear her stories about like her mom from that upbringing. But yeah, there was still things that affected me. And I'm sure that there's things that I've done that affected my kids. And I don't think the goal is to be the perfect parent, because there's no such thing. And I
Hmm.
think that to a certain extent, our kids are going to have things to reflect on and grow from and heal from. But again, it's not about blaming or shaming. It's about realizing everybody was doing the best they could with what they had and what they knew. And so are we.
Hmm.
But now how can we know more? How can we, because when you know what you know, then you change, right? Or you at least attend
Yeah.
to, or you're open to, and you're willing to, which is the first step. And so yeah, just realizing that there is another way, that this is not the
Hmm.
only way. And once we are open to the idea that there is another way, then we can begin to become curious and explore. And that journey itself is helpful in raising our children, because that's what we do with our children. It's like, okay, how can I look at their behavior and get curious and not get
Hmm.
fixated on the behavior and trying to fix it or change it. So when you start to do this
Wow.
work for yourself, you're already doing it for your children. That's why it's an
Wow.
inside job, right? Our children are, the way I look at it and the way conscious parenting looks at it is, our children are just here to live their lives, their journey, and actually help us grow up, or if we haven't, right? And mirror back to us what we're still working on in our lifetime.
Ooh,
And
that's deep.
I truly believe we've chosen each other to do this work. Like our
Mm.
children chose us and we chose our children. And that's why we can't get bogged down by this idea of we're not good enough for them, or we're doing it wrong. Because I truly believe, and it brings a lot of comfort to me too, that
Hmm.
there's something else working here, right? That we're not privy to. And
Hmm.
and there's a reason. There's a reason why we're together, and there's a reason why we've chosen each other, and there's a reason why we're going through the things we're going through. So we can't get
Hmm.
stuck in the I'm ruining my kids.
Oh my
Of
gosh.
course, I'm not talking about like super like abusive,
Abuse or that.
relationships and stuff like that. But honestly, even that, I believe there's a reason for. There's growth within that. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it
Like
go ahead.
for me, oh, that's hitting on so many levels because like for me, I feel like with each child that I've gone through a different process. Like I feel like with Jasmine, we had such a different experience, and me, I had such a different experience as far as mothering
Mm-hmm.
because I just had her. I had a community, I had my family. We were still in Miami for the first 2 years of her life. I worked with you, and I learned so much from you and from the school and the children there who were a little bit difficult. I don't want to name names, but you know who I'm talking about. Um, and I had to like, kind of laugh things off with that little boy and learn to look at him and be curious, like you said, and see where he's coming from and kind of just like, all right, let's find a different way around this. And because of that, I was able to take that not only into my parenting, but also into teaching with you in the Waldorf kind of teaching, and with the Montessori after that in Panama, that I worked in a Montessori school. So I was able to like bring that in there. But I feel like with motherhood and with my second child and now my third child, wow, it has blown up in my face plenty of times. And I'm like, oh God, if Barbie would see this right now, oh my God. No, but for real. I have felt that guilt that you're mentioning, and I have felt like blaming myself or like just having uncontrollable rage that I do feel like I'm being an abusive mother. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. But that guilt that I'm putting on
Mhm.
myself is that heavy,
Right.
that I've put myself in like depression and stressed myself out even more than necessary because of it. And thankfully now, within the past like few years, I've been doing what you said, like this introspection and working on myself and allowing or being more mindful about what the situations or what my, like you said, what my children are mirroring, so that I can like reflect on that and like pray about it, journal about it, and then find the opposite and do the opposite as best as I can instead of falling into like the negative side, do the positive side. But it's so hard, Barbie.
It is. It is, and it's a journey, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight, and it's like a muscle. Like I tell my parents when I'm coaching them, it's like a muscle, and you can't expect your muscles to grow unless you go to the gym and work them. And it's the same thing. So it's constantly realizing that it's not about anyone on the outside, it's about yourself when you get triggered. Like anytime that you are having a reaction to something that is pretty strong and you're wondering, why am I having such a strong reaction to this, right? And it could be something as simple as
Mm.
the sink is full of dishes. And all of a sudden you're like freaking out because the sink is full of dishes when really the sink is just full of dishes. And that's it. Somebody just needs to do this, load the dishwasher or wash the dishes. And you could do it yourself or you can ask somebody else to do it. That's it. That's pretty simple.
Mm.
But we create all these stories in our heads. And I know because I've been there that, oh my gosh, nobody appreciates me. Nobody cares
Mm.
about me because they can't even wash their own dish. And
Mm.
even though I made a meal for the whole family and everybody ate, no one can show me how much they appreciate my meal. But I mean, like, this is how we create these stories in our heads,
Hmm.
right? That
Oh,
have
girl, yeah.
have nothing to do with what's truly in front of us, which is that there are dirty dishes. That's it.
Hmm.
And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with our children's behavior. When our children, if you listen to Dr. Gabor Mate, he talks about how acting out, and that word of acting out has become something negative in our culture. Like if you say a child is acting out, you think
Yeah.
that's negative, right? Well,
Mm.
really, they're just acting out whatever's happening inside of them, their feelings,
Mm.
right? So if we shift it to like, imagine when you're playing charades and you can't talk, you have to act it out, right? So that's what literally they are doing. They are acting out what they are feeling and they're trying to communicate to us what's going on with them with the little skills that they have, especially if they haven't learned any skills from us because we haven't modeled them, because we don't know them, because we're walking around screaming and yelling and smacking and judging and
Yeah.
shaming and then guilting, and then and then you learn a little bit more and then you feel guilty for feeling guilty.
Oh,
Like,
gosh.
you know, so been there too. Um, so yeah.
So today you're going to give us a little bit of insight into these behaviors,
Yeah.
right? Like, what have you prepared for us today?
So first of all, if you look at Dr. Dan Siegel's work, and he has, and you can Google it, he has a hand model of the brain. So since this is just audio and there's no video, it's kind of hard to explain. But like your arm is the
I can add it in the episode
okay,
notes if you
perfect.
want to give me the link, and then I'll add it in the episode notes. So if anybody wants to just click in the episode notes, we'll have that link there. And kind of as Barbie is talking, you can have that visual while she explains it to us. Sorry,
Perfect.
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. So your arm is kind of like the brain stem of the brain. And then if you put your thumb inside your palm and close your four fingers over it, and
Mhm.
if you open your hand where your thumb is, that's your emotional brain. And then the four
Okay.
fingers that are covering it, that's your prefrontal cortex. That's your executive functioning skills, which technically are not even fully developed till the age of 25. So,
Whoa.
yeah. And executive functioning skills means critical thinking, problem solving, self regulation.
Oh,
Therefore, our children cannot even accomplish these consistently and on a well because
yeah.
their brain is not capable of it yet. So what are they doing? They're
Hmm.
borrowing ours. That's why our prefrontal
What?
cortex needs to be online because with our mirror neurons of our brain, that's what they're picking up on. So the second we lose it, the second we flip our lid, as he calls it, which means that your four fingers have now gone up and your prefrontal cortex is gone. It's offline, it's inaccessible. You cannot problem solve, you cannot think critically, you cannot self-regulate, like you're done with that. You can't get there because you are in your emotional
Serious.
brain. And in your emotional brain, you're stuck in your feelings, you're stuck in your stories, you're stuck in projecting all those feelings. And so or you go even further down into the brain stem, which is fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze, faint response. So that's where you either freeze and you don't do anything because you can't handle it and you walk away or you shut
Hmm.
down, or you fight and you start yelling and screaming. And literally, in your nervous system, your body is reacting like if there is a lion about to eat you. And that's your child's
Wow.
behavior trigger, right? So it's like that's what's happening inside of us. That's why the first thing and the only thing that's helpful in these moments is to calm ourselves down and bring our prefrontal cortex back online. And how do we do that? We have to
Yes,
breathe.
please tell us how to do that.
we
Because,
have
girl.
to we have to breathe, connect to our breath because that starts to calm our nervous system down. Um,
Okay.
Exhaling a little bit longer than your inhale. And we have to start to notice what's happening in our mind. What are we thinking? What stories are flying through there? What are the thoughts? Oh, this child is disrespectful. This child doesn't
Hmm.
love me. This, like, what are we creating in there? Because if we don't connect to that and become aware of that, then we can't really shift because we're victims of our stories that we've created
Hmm.
or been conditioned to believe. If we're believing them, then the stories and the thoughts are driving the car, driving our life,
Yeah.
driving our reactions. But if we stop and we say, okay, this is just a story, this is just a thought, I don't have to believe it. I can later go back
Hmm.
and journal and reflect on where did that story come from. It's usually from our childhood and from things that people have told us, right? Culture, parents, teachers, family members,
Hmm.
friends. Um, or so we can do that later. But in that moment, when we have our child in front of us and it's not a critical safety issue, because at that point you have to jump in and do something, but you just are breathing and talking to yourself and telling yourself, I can handle this. I got this. I can handle this. I can become curious. Like first you just have to calm your nervous system. Like calm it all down. Notice what are you feeling? You know, I'm feeling angry right now. Okay, I can handle this. I can handle the anger. I can let the anger go through me. Where am I feeling it? Connect to your body. Where am I feeling it? What does it feel like? Feelings last, depending who you get the information from, about 90 seconds. They go through us. Feelings. Emotions are feelings that get stuck. And then we emote them. We project them. Right? Emotions is what we have when we think about like our childhood traumas, as little as they may be. And then we're unconsciously or subconsciously bringing those up and projecting them. Right? But the feeling of anger that we feel in a moment, if we just sit with it and breathe through it, it will dissipate. And then later we can go back and, like I was saying, and journal and reflect on why did anger come up in this situation? What was I believing? And where else have I believed this in my life? Who gave me this message? What happened in my earlier years that I decided that I wasn't safe? Because it also, most of it comes from fear, that I decided that I wasn't safe and I had to make a decision in that moment to feel angry about it or to project, to defend myself, right? What was happening?
Yeah.
So that's step number one. Always pause. And parents, oh my gosh, it is so hard. I get it. I remember starting this process and going from a yeller, super controlling, authoritarian, to all of a sudden, literally, so I would be yelling and I would have almost like an out-of-body experience where I could hear myself saying, stop yelling, just stop yelling, just stop. But I couldn't. I could not.
I know.
And so how do we build that muscle when we're in that state, in that stage? We meditate. We build that muscle by sitting in meditation, by learning that the thoughts can be there, but we don't have to attach to them. We don't have to take off with them. We can stay on our breath. We can stay in the presence, in the present moment of what we are, which is just awareness. We can stay there. And so little by little, the more I meditated, the more I understood that process of not getting attached to the thoughts, of not taking it personal. That's a huge one too. That when my kids' behavior had nothing to do with me, didn't mean I was a bad parent, didn't mean I screwed them up, didn't mean even that because my son was showing anger, he was going to end up in jail as an adult, because I literally was projecting that, you know. None of that was real. Those were just stories I was believing in my head, and they were driving my reactions. So eventually I was able to start noticing, hearing that voice of stop yelling in the middle of my yelling, and I would stop mid yelling. and then you know, as time went on and I kept practicing, then I could come to a point where I could notice what was happening inside of me and know and tell myself, nothing helpful is going to come out of your mouth right now. Just stop. Just pause. Don't say anything. Don't say anything right now. Let them have their tantrum. Let them have, you know, let them feel their feelings. Nothing you say is going to be helpful right now because you're triggered. So just breathe. Just breathe. Like, it's literally coaching yourself. Just breathe. Don't say anything. Just breathe. Just be here. Don't say anything. And for a while, you go from the super controlling authoritarian to all I could do is breathe and say nothing. And eventually you find yourself coming back to center, which is okay. I can breathe. I can let the moment pass. I can stay calm. I can be the container for my child, because that's what happens. They don't have the skills. So in that moment when they're triggered, we can't teach them anything because their prefrontal cortex is gone. They're in their emotional or brainstem state. So we cannot teach them anything. We cannot problem solve. We cannot teach them a skill. All we can do in that moment is connect with them. That's it. So, and how do we connect? By being that empty container for them to hold what they're going through. But the thing is that, especially even I was gonna say the younger they are, but even teenagers are huge at this. Like, they can sense our energy. So you can't fake it. You literally have to practice how to calm yourself down to be the container. Because if you're pretending to be that container, but you are just like super anxious inside and super fearful inside and just wanting to attack, they're going to sense that energy, and they're going to push you away. So
yeah, they're so much smarter, like not smarter, but how you said, like they're so
attuned.
That's one thing that my children have taught me. Yeah, they're so attuned. And it's funny because I laugh because my husband, he watches The Dog Whisperer, Cesar Millan, and he's like, you need to listen to this. He's talking to you. And he's like, just imagine he's like a parenting coach because you can literally apply all of this. And I was like, oh, Lord. And it's true. It's like they're feeling your energy. They're feeling your own like lack of confidence or your own problems that how you said that for me, it's that, yeah, their frustrations, like I guess reflect me and how I deal with my frustrations. And so that's how they deal with it too. And it's funny because even some of the words that they use, like, my goodness, like that, like, geez, Noah, like they're using my tone, my vocabulary, my even like physical, like body language.
Mannerisms,
it's the
everything.
cutest thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Everything. And so, like, for example, I think you'll go more into this, but for example, like right now, Noah's really getting frustrated with reading, but he's so good at reading. So I think maybe I'm pushing him too much because he's so good at it that I know, like, oh, well, he can read this because like he's picked it up so quick. And that, like, when he gets frustrated at it, I'm like, why are you frustrated, bro? Like, I know you can read this. Like, this is easy. And then I just see his frustration and like, or maybe we're like feeding off of each other's frustration, I guess. And then it just escalates and escalates to the point like, okay, homeschool is over today. Bye.
Yeah. So what are you thinking in those moments when you see him frustrated? Besides, you already said one thing, which is that you know that he can handle it, and it's like, it's almost like, we have a chip on our shoulder, like, why are you not just doing this?
Yeah.
So,
like, you know it.
Right. And if he senses
I'm like, what's your problem?
Right. And if he's sensing that, or even hearing it, if you're saying it out loud, how do you think he feels?
Yeah, for sure. I know he's frustrated.
Does he feel like,
I'm done with this?
Right. Does he feel like you're an open container for him at that moment?
No. Right. Sometimes he even like closes his ears with his fingers.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, all right. And so what you can do instead, right? And this is how we create connection and how we become that empty container is we get curious. First, we empathize, right? Because we have to separate the behavior, which is the acting out, from the feeling that they're having, right? Like, so I tell parents the behavior is like an iceberg. And if you know anything about icebergs, which I didn't know at first, under the water, the iceberg is just as big, if not bigger, than what you see above the water. So what you see above the water in the iceberg is the behavior. But what you see under the water that we don't see is the unmet need. And so we have to keep ourselves regulated enough to be able to dive under the water and see what are the needs here? What is this child's behavior acting out? What is this child's behavior telling me that they need right now? It has nothing to do with the behavior. It has to do with the feelings, the unmet needs. What are the feelings? So he's feeling frustrated. Okay. So then how can I validate that feeling for him? How can I empathize? At the end of the day, that's what we all want. We all want to be seen, heard, and know that we're loved. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can I communicate that to this child in this moment? Okay, well, you can say, hey, Noah, I can see that you're feeling really frustrated right now. That's it. You're validating him. He's going to be like, oh, yeah, she gets it. And then just, yeah, you want to breathe with me? Maybe that'll help. Let's take a few deep breaths together. And once he starts to calm down and he's out of his emotional state, then you can say, so what do you think we can do here? How can we figure this out together? Maybe you need a break from this assignment right now and you need to shift to something else. Maybe you need to move your body. Right? So you're also helping him in that moment to then connect to himself.
Okay, so sorry, technical difficulties. I'm sorry if the audio is glitchy, but Barbie's gonna leave off from our previous audio.
Yeah. All right. So yes, I was talking about the example of Noah being frustrated with reading, and so by you taking a pause and being able to calm yourself down, right? Because you're activated,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're knowing that you want to say, dude, what's going on here? There's nothing wrong with you. You know how to read,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You're triggered. So that's one thing that we'll deal with. But right now, in order to become that container for him, you have to breathe and you have to notice, okay, I'm aware that this is what I want to say, but I realize this is not helpful. So I'm going to put that aside for right now and become the container for my child. So I'm going to connect to his feelings, because I know that if I go under the iceberg and I don't focus on the behavior of him being frustrated with reading right now, which is something I know he can do, or I think I know he can do, I'm going to go under the iceberg. I'm going to look at the feelings. So he's feeling frustrated. So I'm going to reflect that back to him and mirror that back to him and say, hey, it looks to me like you're feeling frustrated. What's going on here? And he may be like, yeah. Or he may be like, no, I'm not frustrated. I'm mad. Oh, okay. So you're feeling mad. Like, all feelings are okay. And that's another thing we have to teach our children. All feelings are okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if they sense that we're not okay with them having all feelings, they'll start shutting those feelings down and not feeling them, or not showing us how they're feeling them. And so they bottle them up and it comes out in another way. So, which is what happens to us, because we haven't been taught that all feelings are okay and that they're just feelings and that they don't really, yes, they have messages for us, but we don't have to get attached to them. We don't have to judge them, I guess is what, that we don't have to judge them. We just have to know that they're there. And so you become that container for him, and he starts to feel connected to you. And he starts to be like, oh, she gets me. Oh, she understands. Oh, she's not judging me. So he can stay open because you're open and you're connecting to him and connecting to his feelings. So we always got to go, what is he trying to tell me here? What is he telling me about how he feels? He may not know how to say, I feel frustrated right now, or I feel angry, right? He may not even know why.
Yeah.
But once you say it and you start naming it, he may be like, yeah, I do feel frustrated right now. And then you can become curious and be like, oh, okay, why do you think you feel frustrated right now? And then going back to where we left off is helping him connect to his body. Where do you feel the frustration? What do you think it's trying to tell you? What do you think you need right now? So we also jump in as parents and think we know it all and we can fix it and change
Mm.
it. And that's teaching them that feelings are not okay and that they can't handle it. But if instead we start to ask questions that can help them, and not questions from a, well, why are you feeling that? Like, you know,
Like sarcastic
um, and it's sarcastic
and
and
like
like testy
cynical.
and like cynical and like, right? Because they may not know at first. Because unless we've had this, we've modeled this, and they don't have these skills, right? So it's a process. So it's just a very curious, like, hey, oh, so what's going on, and why do you think that's happening? And what does that feel like in your body? Let's take some breaths together, and maybe that'll help calm you so that you can remember the brain. If we're in emotional or brainstem, we can't access critical thinking and problem solving.
Hmm.
So they really don't know. So, okay, let's calm ourselves down. Let's walk away from this for a second. Let's just focus on our feelings, focus on processing. Let's just connect. And then maybe we can move to the next step of problem solving. And then it's like, okay, so we've done the connection piece. Now, the next piece is skills. Does my child have a need to learn a skill?
Hey, it's me, just taking a quick sec to let you know about the Pink Premium Access. Get the link for access in the show notes or heavenlytreasure.net, where you can choose monthly or yearly access options. You will get all the uncut gems hidden from the Salt podcast, plus exclusive episodes, promos from guests, Ask Me Anything episodes, and private group Zoom calls for access members only. Sorry to hide these next gems from you. See you in the Pink Premium, and thanks for helping me keep the show alive and running. Wow, you're reminding me
Instead,
of
we're like,
things that you've already taught me, like, or I've
well, of
seen
course,
you
we,
do.
it's,
And I'm like, I know this. Like, Barbie already told me this. But it's,
but you're triggered,
yeah, I'm triggered
and
and
so you can't access it.
I'm already acting on habit, I guess. And the habit
Right.
hasn't been broken again, because now it's 3 children, my
Right.
small little
It's a
tribe
lot.
here. So, but I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to re-listen to this, and this has like been so therapeutic, Barbie. You don't even know. And I'm gonna
Oh,
write
I'm
the
glad.
episode notes for everybody to kind of have everything that you said like in bullet points and with all the links and the visuals that you gave us. And for the Pink Premium Access people, you're even giving them a discount to the services that you offer. So I'm really grateful to you for that. Thank you so much. And just to wrap up, do you have any last words or a message that you want to give to moms listening to this?
So I just want to also mention real quick that there's a free download. We'll send the link on what I talked about: connection, skills, and limits, and going under the behavior. I have a document that'll help you remember the process and give you a little bit of more information. So that's a free download on my website, which is barbyjimenez.com.
Oh, perfect.
And they can get that there. And Barbie is Barby, not IE like the doll, Barby. um, so I think that to end with, what I want parents to really, really understand within them is that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. We're all doing the best that we can with what we know, and with what we've healed. And we're all going to screw up our kids to a certain extent, and that's okay. They're going to be fine. They're going to heal their own wounds, and they're going to be on their own journey. We're here to live our journey, to live in our growth and evolution. And the greatest gift we can give our children is to heal our wounds and do our inner work so we can reparent ourselves and grow up so that we don't project onto them and we allow them to have their own journey and give them the space. Granted, of course, we're going to be here for them to guide them, but we're walking alongside them as our own human being doing our own work.
Powerful.
So,
Barbie,
be very gentle with ourselves.
I appreciate you so much. This has been amazing. I knew it was from the go. I was like, Barbie's just going to have so much wisdom for us. And I thank you so much. I can't wait for everyone to hear this and get all the amazing links that you have for us. I wish you a beautiful day, Barbie. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for creating this space as well, and for being there for other parents. So I appreciate you as well.
Thanks for listening in. Be sure to hit subscribe and visit heavenlytreasure.net for more. See you on IG at Heavenly Treasure Living. Until next time, blessings, and remember to be the salt of the earth.